The following is a presentation of Basenet Internet Television, bringing you topics in the way mainstream media won't. Basenet Internet Television presents As We See It, with Fred Boaz and friends. In Los Angeles, I'm Gene White. And now to our studios in Boston.
Thank you, Gene, and hello, everybody, and welcome to show number 31 of As We See It, being recorded on Sunday, February 19th, 2012. And yes, you do hear a little audio difference there on our introduction this week, because longtime Basenet announcer Gene White is live and in person with us today. Gene White in Los Angeles. Welcome aboard, Gene.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that very much.
And why don't you tell all of our listeners a little bit about who you are and your GMM Radio. Gene, in addition to his duties with Basenet, is the president and operator of GMM Radio, an online internet radio station. Gene, tell us a little bit about that and contact information, and then we'll move ahead with our show.
GMM Radio, GMM stands for Gene's Music Memories. I used to have a radio show of that title, and then when I started the radio station, I called it GMM Radio. But basically, it's a station that plays classic oldies and classic rock. Best songs ever recorded from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And we do it 24 hours a day. Live broadcast every once in a while, but it's going to be more frequently in the next month or so. It's there for your listening pleasure. Great music, I think. And if they want to go online to listen to the show, all you have to do is go to gmmradio.com and then click on the Live 365 player link, and that'll bring up the show. And if you want to email me about anything, it's at genesmusicmemories@gmail.com. That's how you can send me a comment, let me know how you like the station, and if you want to make a request, you can have that opportunity as well. But that's GMM Radio on the internet, and mighty glad to be able to do that. And hopefully you'll have fun listening to it as well.
Great, Gene, and hopefully with our help you could pick up a couple thousand more listeners for GMM Radio. So we appreciate having you join us here on As We See It today, and hopefully you'll be with us more often in the future as one of our panelists. And let me introduce everybody else. You know Gene out there in Los Angeles. And then, as usual, we have Fred Boaz in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania.
Hey, guys, what's up?
Holly Hurley out there in St. Louis, Mo, which is Missouri, or Missouri, or however you want to pronounce it. And then back here in the Boston area, specifically in Brookline, Massachusetts, the birthplace of JFK, and as Holly likes to remind us every now and then, also of Conan O'Brien, we have Larry the Lobster. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey.
Good evening.
What's up this week?
So I guess we have a full plate on our table here today, so why don't we dig in with the biggest fork we have?
Yeah, really. There might be a salad fork about a foot long. Okay, Larry, you got any pet peeves for us? Any lobster tales this week?
I do have one pet peeve. Earlier today, and I've seen this happen several times, and I really don't think it should happen, especially when they are not on their own time. The cashiers at the CVS, I've noticed that while they're on the clock, not on their own time, they will be carrying on a conversation in what sounds to me as though it's Spanish, and I think that if they're not on their own time, they should speak English.
Seems to be an ongoing peeve of yours, Larry, about this English language thing here.
Larry, you know what I think the problem is after having heard a few of these? You have way too much time on your hands. Normal people do not have time to stand around the CVS and worry about what language the cashiers are talking in. We're in, we're out, we're going back to work or to school or whatever it is we're doing. I just think maybe sometimes you develop all these pet peeves because you just walk around with nothing else to do.
No, that's not it. I was in there early. I was in there, and this has happened several times when I've just been
loitering? What were you buying?
No, I wasn't. No, I was not loitering. I was
You were
in
stalking.
there. Will you just?
Yeah.
Stalking the cute little Spanish cashiers.
Oh, I was in there as a customer. And while waiting to get to the register to pay for my items, I know that they had to be on CVS time not on their time. And as I say, when you're on the employer's time, you speak English. On your own time,
we're going back to
use
the
whatever
past couple of
language you
weeks
want.
then that we've discussed on this show. Where in Holly's, sorry Holly, where in Holly's Constitution or Bill of Rights or Declaration of Independence does it say that the cashier at CVS needs to speak English if they're talking to each other in a private conversation?
And more importantly, what do you do, Larry, if they're working in a Spanish bodega?
Well,
Or a Polish butcher? Or a Swiss or German pork store?
Or an Italian noodle shop.
Okay, with that, what kind of lobster tails do we have? What's number one?
okay, number one, a hurricane releases more energy than all the nuclear weapons combined. Number two, the human brain holds between 1 and 7 terabytes, which is 1 and 7 million megabytes of data. The average human body contains enough fat to make 7 bars of soap. The cigarette lighter was invented before the match.
That one, there was a movie, in Fight Club, that's like the whole basis, not to as I know Ed says they're not paying us, but that was the whole basis of a movie, is that people steal fat to make bars of soap. It makes perfect sense, especially in the United States where we're super obese.
It's a hell of a way to lose weight and make some money, too.
Yeah, man, just sell your fat for bars of soap. I don't understand why more people aren't doing this.
And I'm wondering about number two with the human brain and its memory capacity.
I knew that was coming.
I know he said anywhere from 1 to 1,000 terabytes or something.
Actually, no, 1 and 7.
That doesn't seem right.
What's the number?
Between 1 and 7.
1 and 7 terabytes. Yeah, that seems awful low because a terabyte is only 1,000 gigabytes.
I think what Larry's telling us
You
is
got
that
to
the
explain what
computers and the
gigabytes
computers
are.
we're making.
Well, Larry already told you how many. Yeah, really, Holly. Larry already told you how many megabytes it is. That's almost one of the smallest ways to break it down. Okay, so it sounds like an awful lot of megabytes, but 1 terabyte, which is 1,000, actually like 1,024 gigabytes, is not an awful lot of room. We, for instance, record this podcast on a terabyte hard drive, and if I didn't dump all of the Basenet shows that we record on a regular basis and offload them to our other various backup locations, this terabyte hard drive is filled up in 2 weeks or something. So in your lifetime and all, with everything you retain, I don't know, I'm probably wrong because I'm not a scientist. It just seems to me that a terabyte memory in your brain is awful small capacity. Seems like it would be much larger than that.
Well, I wonder sometimes, Ed, obviously I have no capacity for what this all actually means, and apparently I have less than 7 terabytes. But I wonder sometimes if that may be why we write so many things down and why we create computers and storage systems. I wonder sometimes if the human brain really just isn't capable of holding on to that much at one time. Why people who can remember a lot of things and who do have larger capacity.
They're the 7 terabyte people, and the rest of us are the 1 terabyte people.
Unless it's a fact, if you do something over and over and over again, it's not like restoring the same information over again. It's going back in and reusing it.
I wonder if it's like when you save a file and it's like, do you want to save and replace or don't save?
Right. Well, yeah, same idea. Use the same file over and over and over again. But like Ed said, 7 seems to be an awful small amount.
The only other thing I was thinking is there could be, and we don't know, and I don't know that the scientists would have this answer because we don't know that much about the human brain. I wonder if there's some kind of built-in automatic compression system where, okay, it's only got a terabyte free memory, but it super compresses everything to where that 1 terabyte is actually the equivalent of 1 petabyte, which, as Fred asked this week, comes after a terabyte. Yeah, and it just happens automatically that the brain compresses data, and it's not utilizing anywhere near that whole terabyte for storage.
The way I've seen some people drive, I would believe that.
Anything else on any of these other? Anything on any of these other ones that Larry had?
I want to know when the cigarette lighter was invented. If it was before the match.
Did the chicken come before the egg?
Yeah, right? It's totally like the chicken coming before the egg, isn't it? Like, I mean, you originally make fire by striking two things together,
Well,
and then we discovered lighters. Go
Did the
ahead.
Flintstones have lighters?
I doubt it. But I mean, even when it was created, let's say it was created, I have no idea when it was created, but let's say it was created the 20s or the 1800s or pick a year, whatever you like. And then somebody said, oh yeah, these cigarette lighters, I don't want to carry this explosive material around in my pocket. Maybe I'll make something that essentially has like gunpowder on the tip of it so that I can just strike it and light it. I don't know, man. Like I can't imagine a scenario in which you'd need matches if you had a lighter.
Well, no, I mean, I can understand what he's saying, because if you strike a piece of flint and metal together, you get a spark. And basically, without the gas, if they're not using gas, they wouldn't have had the gas at the time. If you're simply using that to light something, then I could see it happening.
Well, the first modern lighter, as we know it, was invented, this is according to the Book of Knowledge. The first modern lighter, as we know it, was invented by a German chemist in 1823.
I'm sure they had matches in 1823.
Maybe, but I don't know, man, because like what you were saying, Fred, about I know when I got, you guys are going to be, I don't know if I've told you this before, but that I have my Wohelo medallion. I was a campfire girl, which is sort of a contemporary / precursor to the Girl Scouts.
Right.
So I know it's crazy to think about me in the woods, but that's what happened. And in order to get my medallion, I had to be able to, actually make fire by, with whatever was out there, without matches, with sticks or whatever. I just find it so hard to believe that, like you said, Fred, that somebody would, like, invent the matches later. But I'm thinking maybe, like, for camping purposes or for some place where you wouldn't want to bring. But then even the spark of the match would be dangerous. So I don't know. I can't fathom this.
Well, also from the Book of Knowledge, which we wouldn't be able to do this show without. The predecessor to the modern match, which was a small piece of pine wood impregnated with sulfur, which you would strike, was invented in China in AD 577.
But that's the precursor. Are they talking?
Yeah, because it's pine wood. It's not a cardboard type match of what we're familiar with now. It's a little piece of pine wood impregnated with sulfur that you would strike.
Well, we don't know what they actually meant when it was invented before the match. Is that the modern day match or the Chinese pine wood match?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if this was an episode of Mythbusters, they'd say myth busted. I don't know. I don't know that I would accept that.
The first friction match was invented in 1826 by an English chemist, John Wall.
Okay, so that would be 43 years after the other one, right?
Right.
So there you go.
43 years before the modern lighter. But what were they talking about a lighter?
It wasn't the modern lighter 1823, and he said this one's 18...
Okay, the friction match, 1826, and the modern day lighter, 1823.
If the modern friction match was 1826 and the modern lighter was 1823, then it was 3 years after by that definition, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what it sounds like. I think we just, I guess you proved it in that sense. But I would argue that those pine wood matches that the Chinese were using were the same basic principle. I don't know.
Yes, and that was way back in 677 AD or something.
You got to remember the Chinese.
Way before.
Well, the Chinese invented a lot of stuff. They invented gunpowder, and they were doing rockets back in the BC days, or BCE if you prefer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If it can light a firework, it's a match.
If it can light a firework, it's more than a match.
All right, so is that wrapping it up for this week's Lobster Tales?
As far as I'm concerned, it is.
Yeah.
I guess so.
All right, let's close the door on that then. So what's our first regular topic? Let's try to get Gene involved here somewhere. We invited him on. We need his opinion.
Well, this one actually...
Listen to you guys.
Oh, go ahead, Gene.
I said, I'm just having fun listening to you guys going back and forth. This is entertaining for me.
Oh, it's going to get better, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. He ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay, let's move on then.
So Larry actually brought us our first story this week, too. What is it, Lobster? Talk to us.
Oh, it's the cop. It was the cop who was chased for, I believe, was that 18 miles and clocked at 92 miles an hour.
Okay, Larry, I'll bail you out. Late for work, speeding. An undercover cop led Florida Highway Patrol troopers on an 18-mile chase through the Palm Beach County before stopping. Then expected some preferential personal courtesy. He says, "You're not going to put handcuffs on me. I'm a cop." The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Deputy Carlos Lisboa said, according to a statement from one of the pursuing troopers. The thing that bothers me about this is the guy's off duty, even if he's late. If he's not on duty, he got to obey the same laws as we do, and they should have put the cuffs on. They should have put his ass in jail. You know, I mean, when they write you a ticket, and the state trooper once told me it's in Jersey, when they write you a ticket, they're doing you a favor.
And he was in a police car that he gets to take home, as we have discussed in the past, that some officers can. And during this chase, he turned the red and blue lights on of the car on, even.
Well, except
Doesn't that change things?
Well, he's not able to take that car home for at least a year.
Well, now he's not. But the whole point is that was a car he was allowed to take home. And I'm sorry. I wish there had been a pause there, Fred, because I think when the guy said, "You're not going to put the handcuffs on me, are you?" the appropriate response is, "What a dick."
Yeah, but you see, the thing is this, though, is that I know in a lot of areas, I know in parts of New Jersey, as an example, the troopers can take the cars home with them, and they're considered to be on duty from the time they get in that car until the time they get home and get out of that car. So, I mean, was this guy considered on duty by the county sheriff's office, or was he officially off duty simply taking the car home?
He said he was going to work.
Yeah, but but if he's in the car on his way in, is he expected to be on patrol at that time? Considered to be on duty or off duty when he's working?
But still, you still don't be involved as being the chasee in a car chase for 18 miles. Obviously, he knew he was doing something wrong because he turned on his red and blue lights and didn't work.
The bottom line is the guy is responsible whether he's on duty or off duty. And if he's not, representing the police department the way he's supposed to, he should get caught and he should get prosecuted for it.
Yeah.
Well, and especially, Gene, if he's turning his lights on with them chasing him, there better be a perp in front of him. Like,
Yeah,
you're into your police force. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I doubt there was.
Yeah, no, of course there wasn't. Because if there was, they wouldn't have chased him. They would have joined the chase of the perp.
Correct.
So, he basically embarrassed himself by using his lights to try to get out of being caught by his peers, who, at that point, know the jig is up.
Correct.
And as Larry was saying, ultimately he landed up getting either a 30 or a 90-day suspension, loss of the take-home privileges of the car for 1 year.
He should have got that. That should have been a permanent thing.
So basically a slap on the wrist, which maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to make a mountain out of a molehill. Maybe for this, all he did was deserve was a slap on the wrist.
But he also had to pay $506.
Yeah, in fines, right? Because he was charged with a bunch of counts on failure to yield to a police officer, during the chase and all of that. So there were traffic fines, sure.
I'm okay with this on one condition, Ed. If this is the same thing they give me if I led the police on a high-speed chase.
Really.
If this is exactly what they do for other perpetrators of this same offense, then I'm fine with it. I think.
And we don't believe that, do we?
I got news for you. You're going to go down a little harder at the end of that chase than this guy went down.
Since they knew that he was a cop or an undercover sheriff's deputy, you leave the cuffs on. No professional courtesy. The cuffs stay on till you get to the station.
That doesn't happen. You do get a professional courtesy.
You get a lot of professional courtesy.
That's ridiculous, especially in this case. There are cases where I think it would be appropriate. Let's say it was a petty crime. The guy's not going to run, that he doesn't have anywhere to run to or whatever. But this guy's already proven he's going to try to run. So, no, you don't take the cuffs off. This is a trained police officer with a firearm. You don't take his cuffs off unless you want somebody to get shot. Because they don't know up at that moment when they first took him down, they don't know why he was running. I mean, if he had some serious, if he'd been running for some serious reasons, he might have fired, he might have tried to escape, he might have done all kinds of things, especially if somebody asks you to take the cuffs off. You don't take the cuffs off.
No, I'll agree with you, Holly, but unfortunately or fortunately, there is this thing as professional courtesy in that business, and it was the arresting officer's discretion as to whether they wanted to leave him in the cuffs or not, and they chose not to.
Well, thank God he was right. This could have been a lot worse if he wasn't.
I was just going to say, the problem with that is you don't know the guy's mental status.
No, you don't. That's what Holly was saying, and she's absolutely right. I have to agree with that. He could have just committed a murder for all we know, and that's what he was running from. But there is that thing called professional courtesy, and the arresting officers just used their judgment to do that. So.
And none of us was there on the scene to see what happened.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's a good story, crazy, and just another one of those stories that we've talked about before, where some cops like to think they're above the law.
I think it's interesting that we've had a few of these in the last few weeks, because I think it shows that the general public is starting to pay attention. And although we are saying that we want to revere our police officers, we want to respect them, we want to love them, we want to support them, but we do expect them to perform within their position, appropriately. And I think it's showing that, especially in the era of the internet, where nothing is really secret, you are held to a certain standard to the public you're protecting, and I think that's a good sign that these kinds of stories are starting to come to light. Because I think if this was a different era without so much coverage, these guys would just be getting away with this stuff willy-nilly.
Remember, there are a lot of people out there with video phones and video cameras and the whole bit, so somebody's probably out there videotaping the damn thing anyway.
Oh, you bet, every time. Well, speaking of videos, ESPN had an interesting story this week that you brought to us, Fred, about Jeremy Lin.
Of the New York Knicks.
Essentially what happened was they put a video up of Jeremy Lin playing, and underneath they used the term, they put in the headline, in a format that you can copy and paste and see on TV, everybody can see it, chink, C-H-I-N-K, in the armor. And they basically, the whole story...
Because they were on a 7-game winning streak, and then they finally lost. So they said, well, this guy's a chink in the armor.
Yeah,
right,
well...
I don't think the word chink was meant in the way that the people are talking about. And we understand what happened. It was a poor choice of words.
Right.
But I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was an intentional story.
I do. It was meant as chink in the armor, and anybody that's of a certain age, and I don't know where you would put the age.
Though. I read the article. I didn't read it like that.
No, I saw that headline, chink in the armor, and I'm like just about threw up. I said, "Oh, ESPN, you can't say that." And I'm not known for being politically correct. And oh my God, as soon as I saw that, I said, "ESPN, come on, you can't do that."
My hope, because you know how many stories they have to turn out a day, my hope is that Fred is right. But just
they fired the writer, the guy that wrote that. They fired him.
I'm hoping that the guy that the writer meant it as a chink, rather, hole or a dent in the armor, because if he meant it the way that it's being interpreted, then I want the guy's job. But that term, a chink in the armor, is something that is used as an innocent term for something that goes awry in this case in a winning streak.
Right, but that falls in the category of one of those terms that's just not politically correct anymore.
Well, and I think the problem I have with it is that, in this actual article, I don't really... I do think that Fred's right. I pray that this guy just didn't do this on purpose, because it just would be so stupid. But I feel like what is offensive, and the reason the guy did get fired, is that this is at the peak of people just relentlessly talking about how this kid happens to be Asian American. Big freaking deal. He's not the first one. You know what I mean? We have a lot of really talented basketball players who happen to be of different races, of different ethnicities. It's not a big deal that the guy's Asian American, but on the news, on ESPN, they just can't stop talking about it. They talk about it all the time.
They have nothing else to cover.
Yeah, come on though. What there's plenty of sports going on. You don't have to talk about the fact that this kid is Asian American.
The thing is just,
if you're going to talk about it being an awesome thing.
If this had been a black basketball player or a white basketball player, and they had used the same terminology, nobody would be saying a word about it.
Yeah,
but they would if it were that wording. Actually, that would be a big deal. If they said the slang terms for any other ethnicity.
Well, if they say that they're using the word chink in the armor, meaning the way I'm talking about, and they use it about a white player, nobody'd say a word about it.
Exactly. But the reason this is sensitive is because there's been this huge stream of media talking about what ethnicity this kid is.
Gene, you wanted to jump in?
He's a great basketball player. Let's talk about that.
I just wanted to say real quick, if the guy is a writer, that he knows how to use other terms, knows how to write things that aren't going to be offensive, knows to use a different word than what he used. I mean, if he's a writer, he should know that. And I don't know why he decided to use this word instead of anything else. Because there's a lot of words out there you could have used.
Well, and oh, go ahead, Gene, sorry.
I was going to say, instead of using this, and the guy happens to be Chinese, I mean, that's not too cool at all.
Well, and I wonder too, Gene, like maybe this guy didn't mean it this way, but this is ESPN. Where was his editor? Who's screening this stuff? Where was the second opinion to go, because Lynn is Asian American, maybe we need to use another term. Some people might think you mean it the wrong way.
And that's where it comes from. It's the perception of what we're worried about.
Precisely. It's just like, a common problem in marketing any product is you have to realize that there are going to be 1,000 connotations for every word you use, and you need to be aware of the perception of your consumer. And ESPN's consumers are the type of people who would notice something like that and look at it that way. I mean, obviously, if they weren't, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And ESPN's got to be aware of that. So where was the editing? Where was the backup for this guy? Where was the producer that said, no, can't do it. Got to find another phrase.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jason Whitlock is the guy who wrote this thing. I'm pretty sure, he didn't do it intentionally, like Fred was saying. It's not like when Gilbert Gottfried made the comment about the people in the tsunami and lost his job doing the duck for Aflac. I mean, that was a little more intense, okay? That was intentional. This one, I don't think it was, but I think he needed to choose his words a little more carefully. And somebody needed to, make sure that it went out there the right way.
I agree, Gene, and that's one of the reasons I think he probably shouldn't have lost his job over it, because I think if this was an honest mistake, journalists do much worse stuff than this all the time, and this was an accident, and one really well-placed apology, will go a long way for this guy, especially if it was an honest mistake.
I agree with you.
Our next shot, I got a story now. We are speaking about things that high court dilemma: can lying about a medal be a crime? And this comes out of Washington, D.C., that Xavier Alvarez stood up at a public meeting and called himself a wounded war veteran who had received the top military award of the Medal of Honor. He was lying about his medal, his wound, and his military service. But he wasn't the first man to invent war exploits. He was, however, one of the first people prosecuted under a new 2006 federal law aimed at curbing false claims of military valor. So what do we think about this one, guys?
It makes me sick.
Well, he lied about it or he got arrested for it?
That he lied about it. My dad's a Vietnam War veteran with a Purple Heart, with a wounded knee, who has been disabled his entire life by his experience serving our country. And the fact that someone would lie about that makes me sick to my stomach. It is disgusting. You want to exploit something that people don't actually die doing. I'm sorry.
No, it's more than that. The way they look at it is that they're committing fraud, they're impersonating someone else, they're taking on attributes of someone else, attributes of a hero who served honorably, said Pam Steiner, whose college term paper calling for the law wound up in the hands of members of Congress. And that's very true. When I'm a veteran, I would never think about going around telling somebody that I'm something I'm not. Too many people are doing that. In a lot of ways, it makes you, you can get benefits from it. People will think different. Be who you are. This guy should go, they should be at least fined if nothing else. It's like kids wearing jackets saying, well, this is my jacket from this. It wasn't your jacket. You're not the one who earned it. You didn't earn this. You didn't earn the right to wear it, earn the right to say it. And it may not be anything illegal, but it's something that's immoral, and it, like Holly said, it just irks the hell out of me. It makes me physically ill.
I just think that it's despicable on a lot of levels. And, as you said, Fred, you never bring up that you're a veteran unless we're talking about something topical to which you think your experience could be valuable to others. because you realize how important that is, how important what you did is on a certain level. And, like with my father, he doesn't talk about it all the time. He has to be pressed to talk about it because it was really unpleasant. And when he does talk about it, he always talks about how thankful he is. He says they weren't aiming for my knee. That's what he says. And people who are truly veterans don't use it as a battling point. Because, yes, they have earned the right to talk about it, as you said, but they also realize the value of it, and they realize the value of coming away from that experience at all. Being able to come home or not vote.
I wear a baseball cap that says Coast Guard on it because I spent 6 years in the Coast Guard. Now, people laugh what they want. I have veterans walk into my office in my other life, where they walk into my office, they have hats that say World War II veteran, Korea veteran, Vietnam veteran. These hats are for sale any way you want to go. And there's no one that can say you can't wear a Ford hat, a Mets hat, a veteran's hat. There's no law out there saying you can't do it. But it's something you shouldn't do if you haven't earned the right to do it, because it's something you earn. Be it wearing a hat from a veteran, being Freemason ring or belt buckle, be it a fire department T-shirt. If you're not part of that department, in case of a fire department, if you're not a member of that fire department, you should not be wearing their shirt. It's just something you shouldn't do.
Well, and it's interesting because, there are shirts you can wear in support of these things. I have a friend who was USMC, and when he finished, he gave me one of his, training T-shirts. And when I would wear it around the city on Memorial Day, guys would be like, yeah. And I'd be like, I'm a supporter. I'm not a veteran. I'm a supporter. And they were like, dude, we're so happy you support us. But there's a big difference between saying, I'm a supporter of this military branch and I served when you didn't serve. Why? That blows my mind that would be something people would actually stoop to lying about. I don't know. That's what makes me sick. And I think I think the law is interesting. And I think one of the reasons that the law is in place is because because of our gratefulness towards veterans, Americans give a lot of things to veterans because of their experience, because we trust them, because they've had, for instance, there's a guy in my business school program who has military service, and there are certain life and death situations where you defer to his knowledge. He made it out of Iraq after 4 years. He served for 4 years in Iraq. So if there's a life and death situation, dude, I'm asking Brad what he would do. And there are certain things you give deference to veterans on, and they shouldn't be given positions based on service that they didn't serve. So in a way, I think that it's important, because I think a lot of guys running for office use their military experience as a fallback, and some of them tend to ameliorate their experience or add to it in a certain way, or lead people to believe things that are not true about it. And I can understand why there's a law, but on the flip side, it's like you said, it's just something on a moral level I feel like people couldn't do. I guess I could make an argument for the legal level, but also just on a basic human decency level. Blech.
And in the article it says when you do that, what we're talking about, impersonating someone else, or the fact that you've been in the service, that's fraud. It's not freedom of speech. Telling someone you're a veteran, that you've earned certain medals, is not freedom of speech. That's fraud. Wearing a T-shirt from the Marine Corps and not telling people that you're a supporter rather than you served, that goes beyond freedom of speech. Wearing a Masonic ring or a belt buckle if you're not a Mason. Wearing a military hat, not in support, like we said before, that's not freedom of speech. That's giving someone an impression of something that you're not. And that should be illegal. And first, I think people, I don't think it should be jail time. But I think they should have a good, hefty fine so people stop doing it.
Well, and I would argue, too, Fred, that, wearing the gear is supportive. It's like you said, you can wear a Mets hat if you're not a Mets fan, but the Mets still get free publicity, or paid for publicity, quite frankly, for that. It's like you pay your money, or you buy the item to support whatever it is. You want to say, I support this. It's like if you watch a certain TV show and you wear a T-shirt to say, I like this TV show. I think the actual gear, I would disagree on wearing it. I obviously, where the Masons are concerned, I have a friends and family pin. I have one of the blue pins that they give wives and children.
So what I meant by that, you're not wearing a Mets hat as a Mets. You're not wearing a shirt that says staff on it. You're not wearing a shirt that says employee on it. That's different. But I have a friend of mine whose uncle was a past master in Freehold, New Jersey, and his brother, my friend's brother, got a hold of his uncle's Masonic ring, and he's walking around wearing the thing, not telling people this is my uncle's ring. Now, not saying he's a Mason, but he's giving the impression, and people will deal differently with you, especially if they're Mason, thinking you are, and that's just wrong. You know, if you're wearing a T-shirt that says Mets staff, well, you're not staff. Unless you tell people, hey, I got this from a buddy of mine, then you're giving an impression of something that's wrong, and that's not. And unless you clarify it, that's not freedom of speech. That's fraud.
Well, immoral or unethical, but certainly not illegal in my mind.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I could really go either way on this. I'm sort of in between, because I sort of feel like maybe it shouldn't be illegal, but on the other side, I also feel like because of the deference we give to military service, I kind of feel like Fred does, that maybe it's fraudulent to say, because I know for a fact that it's like lying on a resume. You know what I mean? If you're running for something, or if there's a certain office or a certain position that you intend to hold, and you are saying that you did something you didn't, that has to do specifically because military experience is work experience, it's like lying on a resume.
Well, I read in researching this particular story a little bit over the past couple of days, our friends at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California have said that this is not...
Oh, God, bat Larry down.
That this
is... Same court.
That this is not fraud, because fraud, you need to specifically have the intent of hurting somebody. In a case like this, you're not, specifically trying to hurt somebody, so you're not committing fraud. It's just another one of those weird explanations that our friends at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals gave, and now maybe I'm kind of even on their side on this particular one, whereas last week I wasn't on their side. They're saying that it's not fraud because you're not using it to hurt somebody.
Nah, I can see their point.
Go ahead, Gene.
If they're getting gain out of it, that's fraud.
Yes, exactly, and I think that was part of the Ninth Circuit's appeal ruling, was that nobody's gaining out of this. They just made a statement. Fraudulent, in that sense of the word, but no gain, as you just said, Gene.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've tired that one out, but I think it'll be interesting to hear if there are more of these going forward. Oh, I think so, definitely. I didn't realize we'd have so much to say about that. So I think, Fred, the next one on your list is actually kind of sad, right? The 98-year-old mom whose son's evicting her.
There's it's terrible. A man's trying to evict his 98-year-old mom from a Connecticut home. This comes out of New Haven, and Peter Kantorowski, I think is how it's pronounced, wants his 98-year-old mom to move into a nursing home or to live with him. She wouldn't go. She didn't want to leave the home that she's held for nearly 60 years. Finally, Kantorowski went to court and served his mother with eviction notice shortly before her 98th birthday in December. Personally, I think this guy should be bitch slapped, but that's my own mind. Mary Kantorowski says she won't leave the small yellow house she's been in since 1953, raising her two sons and cooking for the church she attends daily. The house her late husband wanted her to stay in until she died. The house, to her, she says, is everything, and as far as I'm concerned, she should stay there until the day she dies. I mean, my parents have been living in the same house in New Jersey since 1959. You try to get my mother out of there, and she's going to be kicking and screaming the whole time. So I understand exactly what she's saying. And this guy, she's 98 years old. Leave her the hell alone.
You are not going to like what I have to say about this. One of the other things...
I think I'm going to agree with you.
One of the other things it says in this article is that he was very concerned about her well-being because she seemed disoriented, and the house has been getting into poor condition because she can't take care of herself or it anymore. And he worries about her well-being, and it's gotten to the point, just because she wants to live there and she wants to be okay, she's a danger to herself.
You can't leave this 98-year-old woman living on her own.
Exactly, and he loves his mother, and he's charged with taking care of her. And I have a very close. I guess I don't want to say where because it might be incriminating, and I haven't talked to them about sharing specifics. But I know of a very, very close to me instance in which someone who had dementia very, very far along, did not want to leave their home, but their home was many thousands of miles away from their children's home. And their children are grown-ups, just like this guy, and they didn't want to leave the house. Well, it finally boiled to a head when the mother left the stove on and nearly blew the place up. And finally, they had to force her to move in with them. And it was unpleasant, just like this is unpleasant. It's not pleasant because she has dementia. She doesn't understand that she's not capable. And I think sometimes at a certain point when the mental capacity goes, it's just like a parent taking care of a child. A 2-year-old child doesn't know better than to put their hand on the stove, so you have to keep them from putting their hand on the stove. It's sad that it has to be this way. It's uncomfortable and awkward for all involved, but if it requires evicting your mother so she doesn't kill herself or keep herself in a condition that will make her sick, I say it's okay to evict her.
Yeah, and my opinion on it is no matter what this woman's mental capacity is, no matter how much or how little she's still with it, in air quotes, she is 98 years old. And like you said, Holly, this guy's charged with the care and well-being of his mother. And I kind of have to think, luckily I was never put into this position, but I would like to think that if I had a parent that was 98 years old and wanted to live on their own, and I had the facility to where I could give them their own room or something in my house, they would be in my house in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't do that, because I mean, there's a lot to this article.
98 is 98, That's my point.
Oh no, my father's 90, and I mean, if he couldn't take care of himself, I got to put him in a home as well. I mean, it's easy to say, but I'm just saying, I just don't like the way that the whole thing is going down. I mean, and you're right, but if she is capable of taking care of herself, which I don't know. I mean, she got a younger son who hasn't been over to her house in 8 months, so again, not so inflexible. I can't change my mind. I mean, it can be a good thing. I mean, my mother's the same. My mother has nursing home insurance, so when they can't take care of themselves, and again, parents always think that they can take care of themselves. Now, they don't want to admit they can't.
I'm amazed, actually, Fred. I love your open-mindedness on this.
I just want to say this, guys. If the one son had really cared about his mother, he could even move in with her so she can still be in the house. This way she doesn't have to worry about leaving the house. Kind of accommodate the old lady. I mean, she's been living in the house for so long, it's kind of hard for her to get used to living anywhere else. So why can't they accommodate her by maybe have somebody move in with her? One of the sons move in with her.
Yeah, if she's got a single son or something, let the single son move in, right?
Exactly.
That would be great, but it doesn't always work out that way. Kids, especially, this guy has a job, he has a family. If that's the case, sometimes it's just not practical for him to move in with her, and she does have
another son. She has a younger son.
The younger son, they said, says he says his mother's in relatively good health, but he said, I mean, if he's willing to move in with her, great, but it doesn't sound like he is, quite frankly.
No, and you're not going to force him into doing it either.
Exactly, and you can't force him into doing anything, and if the other sons worry about her well-being, it is sad. It's really upsetting. That this is the way this is going down. And it also says that the guy's trying to sell the house, and I hope that's not his motivation. But I also think that if he needs that money to take care of her...
Well, yeah, selling the house to be able to pay for a nursing home.
It's a difficult situation, I think, for every family. And I think it's unfortunate that, it, like you said, it had to go down this way. But, hey, I mean, you can't say till it's your own parent and you're in a situation where you believe they're a danger to themselves and you're afraid for them.
Well, it can be an emotional situation. Sure.
Yeah, totally.
And it's always going to be.
So now from that story to one that is much more glamorous,
are we getting into our entertainment segment?
No, man. Well, it relates, actually. You'll love this because it's very technical.
It's
but
really not entertainment. If she's going where I think she's going.
Oh, could I give you a little entertainment news then first? Just came up. I know all of you are so interested in this person.
Fred just left.
Was that a door slam I just heard?
There goes the closing door. Fred, who's one of your favorite people that you like to talk about?
Depends upon what subject you're talking about.
She's a singer and an actress.
Oh, God. Okay, what about Lindsay Lohan?
She's going to be hosting Saturday Night Live on March 3rd. Who's going to watch?
I got that earlier today. I thought you guys would be interested.
That's actually pretty cool.
Okay, that's our entertainment news. Holly, back to you.
Oh,
Hey, Gene, this is an ongoing thing. Every time we try, it's Holly. Every time Holly tries bringing up entertainment news, me and Fred try blowing her off. So this was a little ironic that I had to stick in some entertainment news here
who
today.
cares?
But then they always really get into it. I mean, you should really hear Ed singing along with "Oh, I Want to Dance with Somebody." It's really beautiful. No, but
I wasn't singing along.
he didn't sing. I'm joking. But no, but I feel it'll really be news if something happens while she's on Saturday Night Live. I was like, all right, we'll see about that. I was gonna let it unfold before I brought it before you guys. So I love that you brought that up because I totally read that earlier. Anyway, so much more fun for all of us. DARPA is talking about doing an avatar project that's basically kind of like a Terminator crossed with an avatar. Essentially, you send the robots into battle instead of the person. It's almost like that movie with Hugh Jackman, the one that just came out. But yeah, like robot soldiers. This freaks me out, right? Because this is happening. We all knew it was going to happen, but this is happening.
This is just something that is mind-boggling. They want to bring out and the pictures they show, I mean, almost shows a Terminator-type character, like Holly said, but it's at the fevered mesh of blockbuster films directed by James Cameron. DARPA is looking to put soldier-controlled bipedal robots on a battlefield. Think Terminator meets Avatar. Yep. What a concept.
Yeah, it's a surrogate for a soldier, and it's difficult to say how I feel about this because on one hand, if there's not loss of life in a war, sometimes you don't understand the damage that you're doing. But on the other hand, what if you could solve things without loss of life?
I got a better solution. How about 2 leaders go onto a desert island, duke it out, the guy who comes off wins?
Well, that'd be a good idea, but who would lead their countries while they're there? Maybe it could be like in Game of Thrones where you can choose a champion. Country will choose their champion.
No, send our vice president that nobody cares about anyway.
What's true. That?
Send our vice president to fight that nobody cares about anyway.
I care about Joe Biden. Mostly just
he meant in general.
His teeth so white.
I have a better idea.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God.
Why not send in our lieutenant governor? Because we don't need the lieutenant governor. I mean, what does he do?
Kind of the same as the vice president.
Not much.
Yeah, but what does the lieutenant governor do besides flipping a car over?
Not much. The same as the vice president.
Your lieutenant governor flipped a car over recently?
Oh, don't get him started.
Sorry.
You didn't hear about that one? He kept saying,
Don't get started.
I thought maybe it was a strongman competition there in Brookline. So anyway, creepy, but definitely we'll keep our eyes on that because I really do feel like a lot of the things, you remember when you were a little kid and you were like, oh, in the future we're going to fly cars like the Jetsons and people are going to have barcodes embedded so they can pay for things.
Fred's into that because he wants George as president.
George Jetson for president 2012 and Fred Flintstone as vice. There you go. But the thing is, Holly, what you're saying is very true, though. I remember going with my grandfather in Manhattan to the General Motors building on Fifth Avenue. At the time, they had a holographic display, and this is back in the early 1960s, that by the year 1986, we would have computerized cars where you could literally sit back, program where you wanted to go, and a car would take you there at speeds of 100 miles an hour. You go to Los Angeles in 20 hours. It was phenomenal, and where are we at now? We're lucky we can get cars that drive themselves.
I mean, but I think it's interesting because, things like a GPS system, like if somebody told you your car would tell you where to go, or like they used to say, oh, computers will talk to you one day. Isn't that crazy? All the
to go now.
Yeah, right? Like all the conspiracy theories that we used to think of. Actually, my husband has an uncle who was on the original AI project, and the stuff that he knows is possible these days will boggle your mind. It's stuff that you would see in science fiction films is now, just science.
Exactly. You're right, Ollie. A lot of the stuff that we grew up with as kids are coming true right now, and it's fantastic, astounding.
Look at your old Star Trek shows. The idea of a communicator of something that size. I have a phone that's about the same size as Captain Kirk's communicator. It's a fully functional computer in the palm of your hand. It's unbelievable.
Gene, along the lines of Fred's theory about, in the early 1960s, by 1986, we were supposed to have these cars that did all of these astronomical things. Being in Los Angeles, now 3 out of the 5 of us on this panel today actually have lived in Los Angeles, and I'm assuming today traffic in L.A. is no better than traffic was in L.A., say, 20 years ago.
It sure is.
So you're still not going to really theoretically have cars that drive themselves, even though you would obviously have like built-in sonars or something so that they don't just randomly crash into each other.
Sure.
But I don't know how practical something like that could be in a city like Los Angeles.
Well, I'm looking forward to the day that we actually have cars that fly. I think that would really be something super. It really would be. But I don't know how long it's going to take for that to happen.
How about a personal helicopter?
Yeah.
And they make those. You can laugh all you want. Little personal one-seat helicopters, little Briggs and Stratton engine.
I can see those flying around LA.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Well, while we're on tech news, do we want to talk about the Gecko adhesive, the new adhesive that can like hold your television or like something up to like 700 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, there may come a day when mounting a fancy new flat-screen TV...
Hey, that means you could even put me and Gene on the same hook.
On your living room wall?
Yeah.
Was pulling out some double-sided tape. Well, if the double-sided tape is made from geck skin, an advanced super adhesive product carries 700 pounds, usually only an index card-sized piece.
Okay, give your warning. No geckos have been harmed in the making of this product.
You know.
Exactly.
I got a picture on my computer of a gecko on a leaf, maybe getting flipped across the room. The gecko has been developed by a team of scientists studying and replacing the amazing adhesion abilities of geckos. So maybe they were hurt. We don't know.
Well, the way they're doing this is they're how like I was reading an article that Berkeley wrote about this, and of course Ed was joking with me that he's going to have to start calling me Jess. But like essentially the way they're doing it is how like when you touch a gecko, they actually feel really smooth. I don't know if you guys were reptile nerds as kids, but I was. The hands, they actually feel really smooth, but what causes the adhesion is there are these tiny little interlocking fibers that when sort of scooted along a surface connect and cross to
like a cat's tongue.
Yeah, like a cat's tongue.
Aren't they actually create the same effect as suction cups?
No, it's better. It's better because it's like think more along the lines, not to say like a Lego, but those things that aren't Legos, but they have like the big thick plastic fibers that kind of like when you slide them together, they stick together.
Yeah, I had that in my car. They call it vinyl.
Oh my gosh, no, not vinyl. Anyway, so there's some great photos online. I encourage anyone who's a tech nerd to Google this because it's like the coolest thing ever because they're like almost microscopic.
And these are available now?
Yeah, well, according to the article that we read, they are available at hardware stores. Did I read that wrong, Fred? I find this hard to believe that this exists.
It's also funded by DARPA. The project has already been able to demonstrate a 16-inch square piece of material holding a 42-inch TV. It's actually capable of holding a much greater load than that, as much as 700 pounds. Its stickiness even works.
Yeah. We already said all that. Is it available now?
It's a great idea. I don't know.
Fred,
it's out.
We already said all that. Is it available now?
Well, no, it's not.
Okay.
Advanced material won't be heading to adhesive side aisles of your shelves anytime soon. It's certainly an exciting development. Yeah, it's not going to be around for a while.
Bummer. Well, there is a something for people who are counting calories that's available now to help them get their daily intake of caffeine. The AeroShot now has come out with a caffeinated version where you inhale. Essentially, this is like a tiny little capsule, and you inhale B vitamins and caffeine, and it's basically just like a powder that you just inhale out of this little
100 milligrams of caffeine in this powder form, which is the equivalent of one large cup of coffee.
It's called AeroShot. It went on the market late last month in Massachusetts and New York, which doesn't surprise me. It's also available in France. Consumers put one end of the canister in their mouths and breathe in, releasing a fine powder that dissolves almost instantly.
Well, yeah.
I mean, this would be good.
Well, I'll report back to you guys. I'm sure it doesn't work. I've tried those, like those 5-hour shot things too.
Yeah,
those super If it lasts 10 minutes at all, it lasts 10 minutes. That's being very generous, I think, by you. So I am going to give this thing a shot. No pun intended. It's about $2.50. So what the heck? And I'll report back to you.
Oh, that's good.
I actually think this is interesting because I had seen the original, well, not the original, but the original one that was sold in the U.S., the chocolate one that they made before this. In some stores in New York when I lived there, and now they sell it almost everywhere, or at least at places like Urban Outfitters, like places that carry weird stuff for people like me. And the chocolate one I found very unsatisfying. I would much rather just eat chocolate, But as Ed said, if this really is a good delivery method for caffeine, I mean, I drink countless cups of coffee a day, and I've tried Red Bull, and I do think, Ed, it depends on your caffeine sensitivity, how helpful things like Red Bull is.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person where, and I do it on a fairly regular basis, I could drink a large cup of coffee at midnight and be zonked out at 12:30. I have no problem with going to sleep right after I drink coffee. So yeah, so I have a very high tolerance to caffeine. So this product probably won't do anything for me.
It said that each Aero shot contains B vitamins, 100 milligrams of caffeine, about the equivalent of a cup of coffee.
We already said all that.
We already said that.
No, but
You're just like captains or Peter today.
People are concerned about this going into being impacting kids and teens who are particularly vulnerable to the to overusing a product like this, just like they're doing with Red Bull. So that's why I mentioned it again, because people have to understand that it's something that I don't know how you can restrict the sale of this stuff.
Yeah,
well, the
I
problem that I see with something like, and I think Gene wanted to jump in, at least I saw his light flash. The problem with products like Red Bull or something, it's like candy to kids. You know, they want to get this super, I'm calling it a high, but it's, a caffeine high, with these 5-hour drinks or this Red Bull type of drinks, and they just drink these things, 6 of them within an hour. As a matter of fact, on this product that we're discussing now, reading the statistics on it, and they said that they recommend no more than 3 a day.
That leaves me out.
Well, I think you're right, though. The problem, it's sort of difficult, though, to know where to draw the line on products like this, because used as recommended, it's just like soda. Used as recommended, soda is only moderately bad for you, and parents and kids choose whether or not their kids are going to drink soda and how much soda they're going to drink, even though it has no proven health benefits, which this actually, B vitamins are fantastic for your immune system. They're really good for helping your body stave off certain kinds of infections and things, and they do give you energy. They help your nervous system. They recommend B vitamins for older people who need more energy. It's one of those things that, like, at least it has some health benefits, and used responsibly could be great, but it's like you said, kids are not necessarily great at doing that, and there are so many products on the market, not just this, that kids could use irresponsibly. And I just wonder, were we even talking about this sort of stuff like 50 years ago, when a slingshot was something you would give like a 5-year-old kid for their birthday? I don't know. It seems like it's crazy that we have to worry about the implications of every single product we come out with, even if when used properly, it's a perfectly safe product.
And probably doesn't work anyway, in my opinion. Go ahead, Gene.
I was going to say, the only thing is with the product, if it doesn't, like caffeine doesn't wake you up or bring you down, put you to sleep, it's not anything that's going to be worthwhile anyway, because unlike that, I can drink coffee all day long. It doesn't make me sleep. It doesn't wake me up. So I don't know how it would benefit somebody like me.
Yeah, that's why, since I'm in a state where this product's available, I'm going to try it. I'll invest the $250, but I'm willing to bet without even trying it that this is going to work just like that 5-hour thing did, like Fred said, for 10 minutes. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm sort of with you. I'm sort of let's wait and see, because I know the chocolate one didn't do anything that it was supposed to do for me, and I'm a chocolate addict. So there you go.
I'll be interested in the results. Let's put it that way.
All I can tell you is I drank that Red Bull. That's got to be the most horrible tasting stuff I've ever had in my life.
Awful taste. Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how these kids drink this stuff. I mean, I've had one, literally one in my lifetime, and this stuff almost physically made me ill.
Some people love it, though. It's weird. It's a weird acquired taste, I think. We keep them around the house, and I drink them sometimes, but I can't say that I enjoy it. First drink, I'm always like, every time.
You guys remember when they came out with Jolt?
Oh, yeah.
I love Jolt.
Gross.
That's like the old days when we were drinking soda when we were kids, Gene.
Yeah, I know.
Twice the caffeine and all the sugar. You gotta love it, baby. You gotta love it.
There you go.
Well, Fred, I'm going to let you tell us about the other one, because you have a telescope at your house, right? You brought us a little bit of story about Mercury this week.
The planet Mercury is often cited as the most difficult planet to see of the 5 brightest naked eye planets, and it's always thought that it would be a bad rap because anyway, it's you're going to be able to see it around February 22nd. It's called an inferior planet because its orbit is nearer to the sun than that of the Earth, which, if you have any science, that's a kind of duh statement. But it's going to be visible around the 22nd until close after March 12th, which provides people good opportunities to see the elusive planet with your own eyes. If you get a telescope, it's better. First, if you want to see it, first tip for reference: remember to hold at arm's length, hold a measure about 10 degrees, and which anyway, you'll see out in the sky. It'll show it again.
Just look for it, and if you don't know what you're looking for, just look at any planet and say, "Oh, that must be it."
Oh, there's ways of doing it, but they're talking about apogee and all that good stuff. I don't know what the hell that is anyway. I mean, I go out, I look for stuff and see what's out there. But it goes through the same phase as the moon does. About a week before, it'll be out there. But don't worry about it. I don't even worry about it. It's a good story though. But
I want to know how to find this thing. You're being no help.
I know. All right, let me get into a tip for reference. Remember that held at arm's length, your fish measures about 10 degrees in width. So you can use it to make a reasonable estimate of degrees either horizontally or vertically. At first chance of sighting Mercury will come on Wednesday, February 22nd, about a half hour after sunset, and look about 10 degrees to the left of due west. Now remember, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, so when the sun sets, due west. And we'll be sitting side by side about 6 degrees above the horizon will be Mercury and the moon. And remember, they'll be side by side only about a day past the new phase. Scanning the area of the sky with binoculars will aid in your search. Astronomers measure the brightness of objects in the skies in terms of magnitude, and the lower magnitude numbers correspond to brighter objects. Objects with negative magnitude are exceptionally bright. Mercury would be in magnitude minus 1.2, only a trifle fainter than Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. The planet will be about 5 or 6 degrees to the left of the exceedingly thin hairline crescent moon, which will be a mere 1% illuminated. In fact, among the stars and planets, Mercury will rank a respectable fourth brightest behind Venus, Jupiter, and Sirius. So there you go.
And that report was brought to you by the Science Channel.
Yeah, well, who knows? Been out with the telescope, and it's wonderful what you can see up there. I mean, the moon, all the stars. It's great. It's
great.
Could
you see the space station? Because they say that's visible.
It can be seen, but you have to know exactly where to look. It's hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, and something like that, like we said before, everything's on the internet. If you know where you're at, and you know where, and you can put it to I'm sure there's ways of putting that into the search engine, finding out what time and where, the whole bit. I mean, I'm sure you can find it.
Cool. What's next? We have anything else? We're almost done for today.
Well, this week we actually have a listener comment. One of our listeners commented on something that Tony Mizuko posted up, the unemployment, Social Security. Basically, they're saying that Social Security is expected to run out. The Social Security benefits will run out under under the current arrangement that we have, because everybody, obviously, from the recession, there's an 18% jump in unemployment. So, or there's a jump in unemployment since the recession. So, basically, they're expecting unemployment to run out, and they're talking about what's going to happen to help this and what our opinions are on it. And he sent us a link and basically just asked us to sort of give our opinions. So I wonder what you guys think about this.
Well, part of this has to do with the fact that disability, as it says here, comes from the Social Security Trust Fund, which is set to go broke in 2018. Congress last week agreed to dip into the revenue stream to put a 2% point tax break to working Americans. You know, disability is an issue that a lot of people have a problem with. It's not the problem of being disabled or getting money or payment for being disabled. It's how the system is set up that bothers me. I mean, so a lot of your disability is based on how much someone's income is in the family, is whether you qualify or not. I know my mother, who's been blind in her right eye since she's been 5 years old with a disability, cannot collect because she overcome her disability, and they won't. My stepson, when he was diagnosed with clinical depression, was denied Social Security disability because of my income. So, you know, a disability is a disability is a disability, and you should be able to collect. If you're disabled, you should be able to collect something for it, and you should also be able to work a job and not have that cost you your disability, because the disability doesn't go away. But I mean,
so regardless, if the disability or the unemployment fund is going to go broke by 2018, what are we going to do? Is it as
we need
Jose Perez, which Jose is going to be our executive producer today for his suggestion to our show topic. As Jose mentioned in his contact with us, okay, obviously the first solution is to raise Social Security or unemployment taxes. That's going to generate a lot of money. Okay, well, that's obviously one solution. He also made the comment that this is a no-win situation for a sitting president, because no matter who the sitting president is going to take an awful lot of heat for this. So, but what do we do? If it's going broke, you got more and more people on unemployment. What's the answer?
The solutions are simple. You create jobs where you can. Change the disability where you will look into alternatives if there are to disability. An example is, I know a guy who lives in Georgia, who lived in New Jersey. He's collecting $683 a month from federal Social Security disability because he's dyslexic and can't read. Now, I don't have a problem in and of itself for that, but there is a program in New Jersey and in other states run by the Masons, run by the Scottish Rite, where we have a program where we can teach dyslexic people to read. And the program costs these people nothing. But the state will not fund it because they want to have control of the programs. Yet, rather than paying $683 a month to this guy so he can not work and collect money off the books, which this guy happens to be doing, they could be paying the program for 2 years $400 a month, now get a guy who's out paying taxes and being able to get a job, paying taxes, and now saving us, the taxpayers, after 2 years, $683 a month. So there are alternatives to just giving out a disability because someone's dyslexic and can't read, especially when the programs are offered for free. So there are alternatives.
Well, I mean, I understand that in that case there are definitely alternatives, but I think Jose is a little more correct on the fact this is actually a really complex issue on a grand scale because of the fact that there needs to be an overall fix, not just for this one guy who can't read, who could use another program, and his state is being less than helpful. That's one specific example, but the problem is this is all of Social Security everywhere.
Oh, and, I agree on that, yeah.
There was a measure integrated. I know you guys are not going to want to hear this. I'm sure this is going to cause a huge fire on the show today, but which is the last thing.
Why does it involve the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals?
It does not, actually, surprisingly. So that goes in my favor, but it does involve you guys' favorite guy. But Obama, when he put forward his original plan for the budget, actually had this program covered by tax increases. And when Jose says that this is a subject that people don't like to hear about and this is not good for a sitting president, it's difficult to handle, you cannot let unemployment benefits go out. But so the president is in a situation in which traditionally and historically the fix for this problem has been, by every president who's ever pulled this country out of a recession, been raising taxes on the highest percentage of earners. But we are in a situation in this country right now where we have a Congress who doesn't want to pass that bill for very obvious reasons. It's not a popular thing to do. If you have people who are giving you money, are obviously the people from which you'd be taking those extra taxes. So I believe that Jose is right and that this is super complex and that even the most logical, historically proven way to fix it is not something that any president wants to do in an election year.
Oh, not at all. You have to take each, and I just gave one example. There are others. There are many, many others out there.
But the point is the federal government has to keep this from running out. You can take each example side by side, but it's still the federal government's problem to fix the whole problem.
Oh, yeah, they have to. But they have to. What you can do is you need to bring the money in, but you also need to figure out what are actually disabilities and what are not. To pay somebody money because they have an alcoholism gene, that is a self-inflicted disease. I say that out of experience because my wife is through a family of alcoholics, which Ed can verify. When you sit there and pay, like my brother-in-law, money because he's an alcoholic, and you don't pay my wife, who's the same gene pool, for the same reason because it's not her fault, and you tell people, well, if they weren't drinking, they wouldn't be alcoholics, so it's their fault. It's a complex problem that has to be gotten into. You have to have people in there that are willing to take the idea and say, hey, we can't pay money for this. We can pay money for that. We can't pay money for this. I mean, people have come up with the idea raising taxes is going to kill the middle class. We all know that.
No, actually, that's not true because the raising taxes is specifically to the top 1% of earners. So you can't say it's going to kill the middle class because it's not the middle class who the increase would go to.
The 1% top 1% is simply going to hide their money.
Well, I mean, the point of this is also to help keep that from happening. But I mean that has to do with other things. Doesn't have to do with Social Security. But there is in the most recent financial plan that the new financial committee put forward measures to save Social Security. And it does unfortunately come out of some tax increase, but some of it has to do with the money that's being saved now that we're bringing home our troops. So that'll be interesting to see if it actually fixes this problem. But I think Jose's right. I think it's a complex issue, and I think that nobody's going to be happy with the way that. I mean, when you're coming out of recession, nobody's going to be happy with the cuts you make. No one's going to be happy because it's not a happy time. You know, people always talk about the last recession we had as a time that was difficult, you know, or like even war rations, you know, times where you have to give up things in order to save money are called hard times for a reason.
So thank you, Jose Perez, executive producer of this show, for giving us your show topic suggestion here. And also a thank you to Basenet's national political correspondent, Tony Mizuko, for posting this subject on Facebook in the first place. And I don't know, is that it? Are we just about wrapped up?
Today is the 50th anniversary of John Glenn flying into the history books. He became the first American to go into orbit, and that was 50 years ago today.
Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah,
He was the first American to go on orbit, right?
Yes.
American, yes.
Okay, because I know Yuri Gagarin did it a couple years before him.
He was the first, right?
Yeah, he was the first American.
Very
It's
cool.
funny, I don't remember that.
Oh, see, I wonder why.
I went by, Holly.
I don't think there's many 20-year-olds around that would remember that.
Not,
Unless you saw the movie Right Stuff, then you might remember it.
That's right.
Oh, now that I remember.
And what's
that
cool
was
about
a strange time too.
what's cool about John Glenn is that he did get to go up in the space shuttle too, though, and go full circuit.
Exactly.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
cool.
The people don't realize, though, I mean, 50 years ago, what it was like. I mean, you know, it was 1961. Kennedy was president. We were literally worried about the Cuban Missile Crisis. They parked nuclear missiles 90 miles off of the coast of Florida, and people were freaking out. We had the duck and cover drills in Fairlawn. I remember that.
And moving on to our final segment here, which is obits. This week we're only going to cover one. We're not going to talk about Whitney Houston. We covered that in quite a bit of detail last week. This week is all-star catcher Gary Carter. Gary Carter was only 57 years old. He died of brain cancer. Just under a year ago, in May of 2011, he was diagnosed with several tumors in his brain, and he had a recurrence. He was doing okay for a while, and then in December he fell and broke his pelvic or something, and further tests revealed just last month that more tumors had developed, and a couple of days ago we lost Gary at 57 years old. Gary, for New York fans, he's probably most famous for his years with the Mets, although that wasn't his only team. He was originally drafted by the Montreal Expos in, I believe it was 1972, and Gary Carter, as I said in opening, is a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he went into the Hall of Fame as an Expo. The reason you don't get to, when you play for multiple teams, you as a player don't get to pick which team you're going into the Hall of Fame as. The Hall of Fame committee picks that. Well, at the time that Gary was going into the Hall of Fame, the Montreal Expos were moving to Washington to become the Washington Nationals, and the Expos had never had a player go into the Hall of Fame. So this was their one and only opportunity for that to happen. So Gary went into the Hall of Fame as a Washington Expo, as opposed to a New York Met or a Los Angeles Dodger.
Wouldn't that be a Montreal
He
Expo?
played for somebody else. Montreal Expos. That's who he's in the Hall of Fame as. And anyway, Gary Carter in 1984 was what they called the missing link to a potential World Series caliber team with the New York Mets. They had the likes of Dwight Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, and Keith Hernandez, who they just brought in the year before. And Gary Carter was like the missing piece of that puzzle in 1984. 1985, he had one of his best years ever at the plate and behind the plate. But then, of course, in 1986, the New York Mets won the World Series by defeating the Boston Red Sox in that infamous series. So Gary Carter, at 57 years old, it's a shame, very young. He only retired from baseball in 1992. His ambition later in life now, at 57, he was coaching a college team down in Florida. And prior to that, he was a coach for the Mets. But ultimately, he said that he wanted to become the manager of the Mets. And he probably would have been the manager of the Mets.
He would have been
at
a
some
damn
point.
good manager.
Didn't happen. And so obviously we wish Major League Baseball, the Mets, the Dodgers, all of his other teams, and of course the fans, condolences. Right on the day here, well, he passed a couple days ago, but today was the first official day of spring training for everybody. And sad news to have to report, but fitting news on the very first day of spring training 2012. Anything else, anybody?
About wraps it up on this end.
All right.
So I think we're ready to say goodnight.
So I guess that's about it for show number 31 of As We See It on Sunday, February 19th, 2012. From Boston, Massachusetts, I'm Ed Jupin.
From Swiftwater, Pennsylvania, in the Pocono Mountains, I'm Fred Boaz.
St. Louis, Missouri, I'm Holly Hurley.
And from Brookline, Massachusetts, I'm the Lobster.
And from the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, I'm Gene White. And don't forget to tune in to Gene's Music Memories or GMM Radio at gmmradio.com.
And we'll see you all next week.
Night, everybody.
Good night.